Welcome back. Today, we're diving into something huge, something that's basically the hidden engine of our entire global economy, global shipping. And right now, this incredibly vital system, well, it's sailing right into a perfect storm of brand new, interconnected risks.
Okay, so what do pirates, satellites, and sanctions have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? But the answer is actually at the very heart of what we're talking about today. See, they're all pieces of this new tangled web of risks that's totally changing the game for how stuff gets from one side of the planet to the other.
So, before we really get into the weeds on all the problems, let's just take a step back and think about why any of this matters. I mean, look around you. That phone in your hand, the coffee you're drinking, chances are almost everything you own has at some point been on a container ship. Our entire global economy is basically built on the idea that these goods will just keep flowing predictably and steadily.
All right, so to really wrap our heads around what's going on, we're going to go on a quick world tour. Think of it like a global survey of headaches. We're going to hit 4 key regions and see for ourselves the different kinds of pressures that are squeezing this system from like every possible angle.
Okay, first stop, the United States. We're going to zoom in on a couple of really critical spots. You've got the Port of Los Angeles. That's the main gateway for pretty much everything coming in from Asia. And then there's the Houston Energy Corridor, which is, a massive artery for the entire global energy market. And what's happening here is actually pretty interesting. It's this weird contrast. On one hand, the ports are humming along, activity is strong, everything looks stable. But underneath the surface, the pressure is really building. You've got regulatory bodies, think the Federal Maritime Commission, the Coast Guard, and they are dialing up the scrutiny on everything. We're talking pricing, safety, you name it. It's just making the whole environment way more complex to operate in. Yeah, this really nails the central tension, doesn't it? Even in a place that looks totally stable on the surface, these undercurrents of risk and regulation are getting stronger and stronger. All right, let's hop across the Atlantic. Next up is Europe. And over there, we're looking at a totally different set of challenges, playing out in some of the most crowded and strategic shipping lanes on the planet.
The issues here are, well, a real mix of high-tech problems in high-stakes geopolitics. So, up in the North and Baltic Seas, ships are dealing with constant satellite navigation interference. We're talking GPS jamming, spoofing. A lot of it is spillover from regional conflicts, and it's a huge safety risk. Then you head south to the Mediterranean, and it's all about sanctions. Authorities are really cracking down, looking super closely at tanker routes, trying to figure out who actually owns these vessels to stop illegal trade.
So what's the bottom line? It means that just navigating European waters is getting way more complicated and way more expensive. Every single trip now requires this whole other level of risk management. Insurance premiums are going up, and route planning is becoming this incredibly intricate puzzle.
Okay, for our third stop, we're heading to the manufacturing heartland of the entire world, Asia. This is where massive, massive volumes of goods start their long journey across the ocean. Now, trade over here is absolutely booming. I mean, it's incredibly robust. But an old threat is rearing its ugly head again: piracy. We're seeing more and more armed boarding incidents, especially in those tight critical choke points like the Singapore Strait. A lot of this is being fueled by economic instability in the region. And of course, this has real direct financial consequences. Carriers have to beef up security, and they're getting hit with much higher insurance premiums.
So the picture here is pretty clear, right? Demand is strong, the goods are definitely moving, but the cost of just keeping things safe is going up. Security isn't some afterthought anymore. It's a fundamental line item in the budget.
And for our final stop on this tour, we're zooming in on the absolute most critical spots in the entire system, the maritime choke points. We're talking about those narrow waterways, like the Red Sea, the Panama Canal, that basically all of global trade has to squeeze through. And these routes are just uniquely vulnerable. You look at the Red Sea and its geopolitical conflict that's forcing ships to take that super long, super expensive detour all the way around southern Africa. Then you look at the Panama Canal, and it's not conflict, it's climate. Long-term water level problems are creating a massive structural bottleneck. 2 different problems, same disruptive result. And this really highlights a huge shift in thinking. What used to be seen as a temporary fix, just rerouting a few ships, well, that's now a permanent part of the strategy. Finding different routes isn't a backup plan anymore. It's the new normal. Okay, so we've just been all over the world. We've seen 4 very different regions with 4 very different sets of problems. But what happens when you step back and put it all together?
Let's start connecting these dots. This table really lays it all out, doesn't it? You've got regulatory and safety pressure in the US, then there's the navigation and sanctions risk in Europe. Over in Asia, it's all about piracy and security costs. And in those critical choke points, it's just pure uncertainty. The big takeaway here is that no single region gets a pass. Every single one of these problems just piles on another layer of complexity to the whole global system. And all of this, it brings us to the big idea. The one single concept that really ties all of these different headaches together. It's a concept the industry is calling risk normalization. And what does that mean? It basically means that all those challenges we just talked about, the piracy, the sanctions, the disruptions, they aren't treated like isolated emergencies anymore. Nope, they've become the new baseline. This is just the everyday, normal reality of global shipping now. And that, as you can imagine, requires a massive shift in mindset. The old way of thinking was all about efficiency first. Just get the stuff from point A to point B as fast and as cheap as you possibly can. But the new mindset, it's all about risk-balanced optimization. Look, speed and cost are still important, nobody's saying they're not. But now things like safety, compliance, and just plain resilience, they carry the exact same weight. This really is the new reality. It's a fundamental pivot in how the entire industry has to think and operate. The goal isn't just about being efficient anymore. It's about building a system that can actually bend without breaking in this new age of constant overlapping risks. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. All this complexity we've been talking about, the higher insurance costs, the longer routes, it all has to add up somewhere, right? So the next time you're shopping online or in a store, maybe it's worth asking yourself, when risk is the new normal out on the ocean, what is the true cost of getting the stuff in your cart safely to your door?